Hi everyone, it's Mark here again. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network, and this is the most fun I have in my job is when I get to meet and chat to and interview some of our full members. So we're on a bit of a mission now in the Arts and Culture Network to establish a global arts and culture support foundation over the next 7 years. And to do that, we need a small amount of money from lots of people. And we don't have that many people yet, but it's growing nicely. But one of those people is Mark Dolamore. And Mark has joined me today for an interview and a quite remarkable journey through something really quite exciting that Mark's been working on. Excuse me, I'll let Mark explain. But Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
And we did joke, you're in the Midwest, but the Midwest of France.
Correct.
So somewhere between Limoges and what was the
Angoulême, yeah.
Angoulême. Okay, so that's great. We can picture you on the map. So let's dive in, shall we? Because we've got something of a challenge ahead of us, because what you've been working on is not immediately and easily understood, but it's actually fundamental and really quite an exciting discovery. So I'll do my best to be the sort of lay person in this respect and ask you questions that I think some of our members would want to learn. But my understanding is that your study of an ancient Asian philosophy or concept has made it possible for you to discover a way in which we can redress some of the seismic wrong turns that we might have made over the decades and centuries to find ourselves in a situation where things are going wrong on our planet. And it all starts with the I Ching, doesn't it? So I'll be sharing a screen just to illustrate how you introduce this. But if you could take us through the stages of the discovery and what it means and the concept of Gaia from start to finish. And if I get lost, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm going to say I'm lost. Can you explain that in a bit more detail? Because I'm learning it the more I speak to you, the more fascinated I am in this, and it's got codes and symbols, and there's a movie in this that would be similar to the Da Vinci Code, I suspect, because it's fascinating. So I'm going to share one of the pages on your website in which you introduce the wisdom of I Ching, and perhaps you could give us a little narrative around what it means, and I can click on certain places to help that. So I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Okay, so Mark, what have we got in front of us here?
We have something that is historical. It's the most ancient arrangement of these 6-line binary symbols called hexagrams. And that one is called the King Wen sequence. It starts with the full one, the full lines, which is the creative principle, and then it goes on to the broken one, number 2, position 2, which is the receptive. And you can click on any of these in my website to understand more about what the symbol means.
So I've clicked on 2.
Yeah. So the text there tells you, it's a sort of my potted version of what the I Ching Oracle says about this particular symbol, which is all receptive lines. And if you notice the symbol or the mandala thing on the right hand side, that shows you what the symbol converts to in my system.
Okay. Got it. And remind us where the I Ching was, where and when the I Ching was developed. Do we know?
Well, we know, yes. It was developed by a fellow called Lao Tse, or at least he was one of the early sages in the Orient who came up with this. And apparently These symbols, believe it or not, were revealed to him on the back of a turtle. Oh.
Oh, I can kind of see that.
Yeah. And then they were developed into the sort of more coherent 6-line symbols. And it's a series of 64 nuggets of wisdom, really.
Okay.
So it's 6 by 6, 30. The actual number of the symbols is the full permutation. And when I say permutation, I mean there's a top and a bottom half of the hexagram,
Right.
and there
So
are
these numbers relate to the top half of the hexagram.
no, that's the full cycle. But
Okay.
the top half, for example, if you click on any one of them now,
the top half in it.
yeah,
You
you
mean
see above, below, underneath the symbol.
Oh yes, yeah.
Above is the tenacious. That's the name of the trigram. Which you look at the top of the mandala there. That's that one. Okay.
Right. The top half
And
of this.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
bottom is the receptive, which is one of the principles of the universe according to Tao.
Right.
There's the receptive and the creative. Okay.
And so that is interpreted as meaning this, is it?
Yeah.
So dark forces are undermining what remains of dependability. The house is due to collapse. And is that an interpretation, or is it a real translation, or a bit of both?
A bit of both. This comes from the original interpretation of what the symbols meant,
right?
Back in the day, and we're talking about that early the 64 symbols laid out in that way were given the name King Wen, the King Wen sequence, and King Wen was, back in sort of ancient times, he was a king, but not really a king, as we know today. He was a bit of a bigwig, and no sort of how would you put it? A nobleman, I suppose.
Okay.
And he was imprisoned for ransom. And during his imprisonment, he came up with this arrangement and did a sort of a rationalization.
Now I know that this goes one step deeper in the pyramid, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This was in that pyramid. So where can I?
But the pyramid, all the symbols in the pyramid relate to this mandala thing. They're all built within this mandala. So if you go to the blue triangle.
Oh, or this one. I was in the blue one.
Okay, it's the green one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there, similarly, in the website, you can find the symbols that are the result of a formula, which is the same formula applied in series to the binary codes, which are combined using this formula.
Right.
If you want to go back to the pyramid art text, I'll show you where to find that.
Okay. So if we go back to
the pyramid art thing. No, not that one. No, that one. That's it. Okay, so if you scroll down, mathematical system. Okay, so this is the system.
This is the original work of art, isn't it?
Yeah. What it does is it gives you the graphic of the binary codes, and it allows you to see how the symbols are built.
Mm-hmm.
The formula is quite simple. It's there at the top. It's an example. Hold on.
Yep.
it's an example. It's the fifth because it's one of the simplest ones.
Okay.
So it's basically the position as a 2-digit code within the 64 series,
Yeah.
and its mirror image.
Right.
So 05
Okay.
and 50.
Got it.
I'll
Yeah.
just have this answer this time.
Now, when you combine those designated hexagrams
Mm-hmm.
using the mandala, which is that thing below it, okay, that's something I call the jewel mandala because it looks a bit like a jewel,
Mm-hmm.
facets of a jewel. So each one of those designated, you just scroll up a bit, there you go. Each one of those designated things is a set of coordinates within the mandala.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so,
those are made, and those tend to be lines between 2 points.
well, they are lines between 2 trigrams. Each hexagram is made of 2 trigrams. So
Right.
you can represent a hexagram with the line in the mandala.
And so that then becomes a symbol, as
That's
you
right.
show here.
Joining up those lines, those designated choices.
And then that
formula.
becomes and so when that combination of symbols appears in some art, then there is huge depth behind that, because somebody who knows and understands the manner of encryption, for argument's sake, or the symbolism there, can interpret what they see and use what they learn as guidance in their lives.
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, I've done the interpretation for you, and there's ways of using them.
Right.
But I'll come to that because it's far more complicated.
Well, I think probably we might want to refer some of our viewers to that if there's a greater interest in it. So, but this is fascinating. If you don't mind, I'll summarize, because you've
Can I just point something out first before you do that? If you can go back to the pyramid text at the pyramid art at the top there. Okay, now if you go to scroll down, central imagery of the pyramid, click on that. So here we have the symbols laid out, and they're all positioned systematically, and they're all, if you believe that chance determined what this whole formula and progression in art, if you think that it was chance-like, because it's all based on the Jungian notion of synchronicity and meaningful coincidences. Mm-hmm. That's the fundamental thing to note that I don't think we have done yet. But here we have 2 symbols that defy that logic that chance is meaningless. We have the first and the last letters of the alphabet right in the middle. And we have a stick drawing of a butterfly, a symbol for beauty, flying above.
Okay.
So significant, I think so. That's why I'm shouting about it.
Okay. This has been fascinating, but I think what what we'll do for the benefit of those who'd like to learn more is make sure that your contact details appear wherever this interview does, and we can link to the website so people can experiment with this. But just in summary, you've effectively inviting people to get involved in a kind of communal further exploration of this in an experiment.
Well, yes,
haven't you?
an experiment which would prove through the weight of evidence that people generate for themselves, that there is a dimension beyond what we're familiar with, and it's something creative within us that we can access if we approach it receptively.
A dimension that we have learned to forget about, or
that we haven't really
understand.
learned, and that we've certainly forgotten about, because
Yes,
it was there in the I Ching.
Yeah, it could be space. Space effectively has what, 2-3 dimensions?
Space has 3 dimensions, and then you've got the fourth, which is time, and
duration,
that gives the
duration of
relativity,
existence,
the space-time.
Yeah.
But then this other one, the 5th dimension, is the timeless dimension. I mean, science has recognized it, but not really pursued it or researched it. And it's called non-locality.
Non-locality.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? That's what scientists think.
So, Mark, thank you so much for this introduction. I could talk for hours with you about it. I find it absolutely fascinating, and for something that has its origins in ancient history, being brought up to date, and allowing people to engage together in its exploration and experimentation with the potential to make significant changes to the way that we make decisions, live our lives, create art. I think it's fascinating. So thank you so much for that introduction to this. This might feel like a gear change, a crunchy gear change, but we're going to move on to the arts and culture hot top 10 section of our interview, if that's okay. Now, this is fascinating. This will be where we get to know Mark a bit better. We now know your work and your fascination. This is where we ask some questions as a kind of icebreaker. There are no wrong answers. It always produces an anecdote and a surprise, in my experience. So I'm going to ask you if you have a favorite across 10 art forms, and if so, what it is and perhaps why. If you don't, it could be your most recent experience of that, and if that isn't included, then you're most welcome to throw the question back to me and I'll answer it for myself. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Now, Mark, do you have a favorite building?
Yes, that would be the Chrysler Building in New York.
Nice. It's art in all its Art Deco beauty.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. I saw a wonderful photo on, I think it must have been Facebook, of some workers building the Empire State Building, and they just got to the point where they were looking down on the Chrysler Building. It's great. Excellent. And what about a favorite book, or one that you find yourself revisiting time and time again?
Well, I feel forced to say that it's the I Ching. So that's my answer.
That makes perfect sense, given the work that you do. Now, going off on a bit of a tangent, do you have a favorite dance form, or dance group?
I have 3 left feet, so I'm not talented at all in dance. It's an area I tend to shy away from, although I do appreciate the movement of the human body. So, favorite dance. I once went to Buenos Aires and to a tango bar, so I'm going to say tango.
Nice. That's stunning when it's done well, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. And it almost sort of becomes something other than dance, doesn't it? When it's done well. Seduction.
It's a sort of visual relationship between the dancers. Very macho.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Now, this one's fun, given that you have lived in several different locations. I want you to assume that you've been exiled from France for some unknown misdemeanor, but but you've been given the chance to choose which country you're going to live in based on your perception of its culture. Where are you going?
I feel forced to say Brazil because I've lived there. I know the country, and it's full of marvelous things, and I haven't explored it enough. So, Brazil.
Brazil, brilliant. Now, do you, as a participant or a spectator, do you have a favorite sport?
Tennis.
Tennis.
Mm.
Spectator or participant?
Well, I used to play. I'm now in a wheelchair, so it's got to be spectator.
Okay. Now, this one's somewhat cruel. I'm going to limit you to one musical genre for the rest of your life. What would you choose?
One music genre. Something inside me is saying something which most people find appalling. Free jazz.
Oh, there's the surprise. There's the surprise right there. Free jazz. Love that. I haven't had that as an answer before, but that's great. I can picture you now, you see, in Brazil, listening to your free jazz, watching some tennis.
Yeah.
And what about so there you are in your apartment in Brazil. Would you have a favorite city in Brazil?
I know Sao Paulo quite well.
So you're in an apartment, Sao Paulo. There's tennis you're watching Wimbledon on the box. The I Ching is sitting next to you on your coffee table. You've just watched a documentary about the building of the Chrysler building. You've got some free jazz on in the background because you don't want to hear the screams of the modern tennis players. And up on the wall next to you is your most favored work of art, and you can have anything you want. What's up there?
This is a bit of, I think, probably a cheeky answer. I would have Salvator Mundi's most expensive painting that's ever been sold.
Okay. And you'll be in a larger apartment pretty soon.
Yeah, well, I'll soon be getting rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fate.
You're planning to go out for the evening, and you've decided to go to a play or a musical, and you can have any one of those you like in your local theatre. What play or musical would you enjoy most?
I'm not really a big theatre person. I'm going to have to say something conventional. The importance of being earnest. I think it's
okay. A bit of Wilde.
A bit Oscar Wilde, yeah.
Nice. You can have that. Now, tomorrow you're going to the cinema in Sao Paulo. Listening to free jazz in the car as you go. And you're going to see a film. And it can be any film you like. So what would you choose?
I'm going to say something quite boring. The Bourne Identity.
Oh, nice. And there's a few follow-ons the sequels you can watch as well. Brilliant. Yeah. Excellent. That's great. Now, the last one in this section, apart from me, who was the last person to make you laugh?
I don't do a lot of laughing these days. Probably my long-time girlfriend, wife.
Excellent.
Eloisa, her name is.
Louisa?
Yeah, Eloisa.
Eloisa. Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. That's the first time I've told a little story weaving the things together. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I can picture you now in that apartment in Sao Paulo. Brilliant. We're going to do the a quick round of one or the other, if that's okay. So I won't torture you with this for too long, but I'd like you to tell me, you have to decide which of these you're going to have. Okay. It's fast. It's pretty fast. So we won't hover for anecdotes, but it'll give us a sense of what your preferences might be between these two things. Are you ready?
Go on.
so I didn't give you any warning about it. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Radio or television?
Television.
Car or motorcycle?
If I was still active, it would be motorcycle. I was a big biker.
Ooh. Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Concert hall or sports stadium?
Concert hall.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Test the water or dive in the deep end? Metaphorically.
Dive.
Good for you. Orange juice, bits or no bits?
Bits.
Library or museum?
Museum.
Beethoven or Mozart?
Mozart.
Shower or bath?
Shower.
Cooking or being cooked for?
Being cooked for.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction.
Beach or mountain?
Mountain.
Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Start immediately or wait till the last minute?
One of my biggest failings. Wait till the last minute.
Yes, a partner in crime. Love it. Science or history?
That's a tough one. I'm interested in science, but I'm also fascinated and captivated by history and interpretation of things. So history.
Right. Yes, the history is written by the victors, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the sad things about it in ways.
Yeah.
In ways.
New York or Los Angeles?
Oof. New York.
Black or white?
Black.
Circle or square?
Circle.
Should have added pyramid there, shouldn't I? Or triangle at least. Early morning or late night?
These days, early morning.
Messy desk or tidy desk?
Messy.
Oh. See the future or change the past?
Fascinating. Yeah. Change the past, I think.
Okay. Red or white wine?
Red.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
This might be difficult. Numbers or words?
Words.
Okay. Rare or well done?
Rare.
Mild or spicy?
Spicy.
Opera or chamber music?
Chamber.
Contemporary or classical art?
Contemporary.
Matisse or Kandinsky?
Matisse.
Black and white or color photography?
I think colour.
Shakespeare or Chekhov?
Go for Shakespeare.
And finally, and I think I might know the answer to this, jazz or classical music?
Classical.
Oh!
No, I didn't mean that.
Excellent. Mark, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for joining me to do this. there'll be contact details wherever this appears, so that our colleagues can get to know you a little bit better and reach out and connect with you and learn more about the work that you're doing, which is fascinating. So thank you for being one of our full members. Thank you for helping to contribute to make what we're planning happening. I'm very grateful. So don't run off, but I think we'll let everyone go now. But Mark, I hope you found this enjoyable. Thank you very much for joining me.
Bye all.